Hello world. Welcome everyone to Digital Futures live session. I'm Ahmed Hassaf from Digital Future Youth Committee. I'm a lecture assistant at the American University in Cairo and a senior architect based in Egypt. It's my honor to moderate today's session. I'm so excited. This session is joined by Digital Futures Young Committee and organizers at NILH. And I would like to celebrate good news we had this week. Digital Futures, Professor Neil Leach and Professor Philippe Yuan will be doing presentation about Digital Futures got an award from Acadia for the program, Acadia Innovative Academic Program Award. Okay. Today's session is about traditional construction techniques in Middle East and Africa. We have a very interesting panel of speakers joining us from different places, Egypt, Jordan, and Kenya. We have received a very fascinating presentations. So I'm honored to be with these amazing presenters. Let's start our presentations. We have 4 presentations, and our presentations will be streamed on YouTube and Bilibili, and we'll be waiting for your reflections, comments, and questions on on YouTube and Bilibili and Discord channel. So our first presentation will be with Professor Adil Fahmi from Adil Fahmi Foundation from MSA University, Egypt. So please, sir, would you introduce yourself and start your presentation?
Hi, thank you very much to give me this opportunity to talk to you. My name is Adil Fahmi. I'm Egyptian, and I'm working as a professor of vernacular and appropriate building technology in MSA University. And I would like to talk to you today about revival and improving of natural building material, clay, and revival traditional structure like compressed earth blocks and rammed earth. So I will show you my presentation in PowerPoint. But before, yes, as I said, we have some trouble with the high tech, but we.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Yes.
Just share the screen.
I am a little bit slowly, but I will. I'm going to make. Yes, just 1 minute, please. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's come.
Yeah. Welcome on board.
Here is our presentation. It's called Clay for Human Settlement in Middle East and in Africa. But before we talk about clay and traditional structure, I would like to say, what is the problem nowadays? The problem is, a big problem is our architecture is so expensive. We have a lot of pollution caused by architecture, by building materials. Here's some silly things, diagram showing that Egypt suffered from emission of CO2, a very high percent of emission CO2 in Egypt caused by cement production and cement architecture. 7.2% from the total pollution in Egypt or in the most developed countries caused by using our friend cement as a building material. Cement is not so good for us. It's so expensive. In Egypt, can you imagine 1 sack cement costs 50 Egyptian pound, and a worker again per day 75 Egyptian pound. So he have to work one day to buy one sack of cement. Can you imagine how many days and years he have to work to, to build his house out of cement? No way. No way for us in development countries to build our houses with cement. So we have to thought about using and the revival of natural building material. What is this? The solution, I have it here. The solution is using natural material, clay. I'm going to concentrate on clay because we are a lot of natural building material. It can be used very good in architecture. We love clay, and we said soil and soul belong together. So we have a long history with clay. Even the old Egyptian pharaohs, they teach us how to use clay in building. So we know now the advantage of clay. We know now the clay is one of the best solutions to build our houses. So we start to study clay, to make investigation in clay, to know exactly what kind of clay is appropriate to use in the architecture, to use in production of bricks, plastering, and so on. So we start really to make a lot of study to find out what is clay and which one is appropriate to use for architecture. We did a lot of investigation. Here is some investigation also in Stuttgart. We did it. We took a lot of different examples of soil and we tested. And then we started to produce one of the best improved way to use clay is the compressed earth blocks. Very simple. We choose the proper soil and we mix with the stabilizer. We never use cement. We use lime as a stabilizer. And in 1980, with our friend in Belgium and south of France, we could improve a compressor. Here we can see it in this workshop. So we produce now compressed earth block, and this is one of the very good building material to use, the natural building material. The second method to use clay is the rammed earth. And I think you know rammed earth. So rammed earth is also very common structure method to be used in different projects, in schools, in houses. And we did some investigation. How can we use it in our development countries in Egypt? When we started a couple of years ago to work with compressed earth block, we went to several projects. We was working with Martin and Anna Heringer and all of our friends to improve this kind of method in Egypt. So it was also important to do a practical training for masons, for students, for decision maker, to create a new generation. This new generation, they know the advantage of using natural building material clay. So, and then we start to, I will show you some example of our projects in Egypt and in Africa. The last project we did an hospital and center for detoxification. Detoxification, that means a center for young people, they suffer from drugs. Drugs, it is a big problem all over the world nowadays. So we use clay, we use dome and vault, we use natural stone to build this center, and we succeed really to have such an architecture. Maybe here you can see it, that it helps also people for drugs. So I do believe that architecture can be also a big help for treatment such problem. So the second project is our house, Ahmed house. It is a poor man, our dear friend Ahmed, he need a house. So we went with a lot of young people to produce CEB and to help for the construction of his house. This is Ahmed house, was built by using clay, covered by dome and vault, and the final was this nice house. Ahmed was so happy with his new house. So I asked him what you are going to do with the new house. He said, I am going to marry again. So he is married with two ladies, but with this beautiful house, he was thinking to marry for the third time. So the second project is the House of Three Sisters. We have three ladies, two strong three ladies. They decide in Cairo to build a house out of clay. This was the first time in Cairo to use compressed earth block to build this beautiful house. This is a family house. Here lives three sisters, three families. And I think we succeed to create this house out of compressed earth blocks and rammed earth too. Dome and vault also is integrated to cover the roof. Here's some inside picture, but I would like to say something here. We try to present an example showing that with clay we can also create a modern architecture. And this is so important to show people that with this kind of beautiful material, you will have a modern architecture, because most of them, they were so afraid that clay cannot be used in modern architecture. Look here, and there are a lot of advantage of using clay. Here we have no air condition. It is enough in winter time to have a fireplace, and in this house we use wind catch system, so no air condition. That means no pollution. That means also such method to use to save energy, to save money, to have such an human architecture. So this is the house of the three sisters. I will show you another example. This is an art center in Fayoum. Also, we used here the same material, clay, wood, natural stone, and we succeed to make such a beautiful art center to teach children art and a lot of activities. So I would like to say that by using this kind of material, you can use it in centers, medical centers, houses, school. We build the universities, and no reason to use concrete. No reason. With this kind of material, you can build everywhere and in every climate condition. So now is some example from this art center. Beautiful architecture, cheap, environmental friendly, human. So we jump to Ouagadougou with my dear friends from Switzerland, where I was living in Germany. We went to Africa and we did the University of Ouagadougou. This was the first a big project in Ouagadougou using CEB, compressed earth blocks, and covering the whole university's building with dome and vault. It's a very good example to use. It was also environmental friendly. So another one, also not a big project, was also a small project in Ouagadougou too. Ouagadougou is the capital of Burkina Faso, by the way. So we did this in a small center for Nouvelle Energy, and also it was built. And we, at the same time, we tried to do a lot of study how we improve dome and vault to cover big rooms to be used in such building. So we use this natural material not only in this kind of architecture, but also for, yes, we jumped to Somalia, a very difficult situation, a land without government. People are dying in the street, and people are living in such a situation. But I cannot imagine how can you people living in such situation. So we went there, we said the solution, look, this is an example. This is a poor man living in this hut. So it's a catastrophe in Somalia. So I went there and I was asking to make a solution. The solution is to train local people how they use dome and vault and CEB to build their own house. This is the solution, not another solution. So here was our project for the refugee to build their own houses by using dome and vaults and CEB and rammed earth, and with participation of the inhabitant, we could really make a lot of example in Somaliland. So, well, the last thoughts I would like to say, this was my dear friend. She was so happy to have finally this model unit by using dome and vault. She came to us and to say thank you very much to helping us. So the last one is, I think, with using compressed earth blocks, revival of traditional way of building, keeping the tradition, we can keep the promise that we are going to offer a nice human architecture, not only for African people, but all over the world. Thank you very much for listening. Adil Fahmy speaking to you.
Thank
okay.
You. Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah,
please,
thank you.
Please. I tried to make it fast as possible, and I hope I could really show good example.
I had a lot of questions. Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Yes, there are a lot of questions, I know, but not difficult questions.
Yeah, we'll ask you after we finish the rest of presentations. We had now the second. Yes, Engineer Radwa from Handover. Would you please, Engineer Radwa, introduce yourself and then share your screen?
Sure. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are at the moment. So yes, I'm Radwa Rustam. I'm from Egypt. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working with earth construction for almost 5 or 6 years now. Yes, I had the honor of meeting Professor Adil when I was first starting this career, and he was always very generous with the information he has. And thank you for including me in the panel, and so looking forward to listen to the rest of the panelists.
Welcome.
Just a second, I'm sharing my screen now. So can you all see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. So yes, I'll be talking today about Handover, my company, and the work we're doing in Egypt and very recently in the rest of Africa. What we're using, what we're building with, and some examples of the projects we've done throughout these years. So Handover, who are we in the beginning? So we are a team of architects and civil engineers who are, we were all passionate about doing something new, and we had the same drivers that Dr. Adil mentioned of being frustrated from everything around us, and we wanted to do something different. We had the urge of of solving some issues such as the increase in the prices of the buildings that we're doing or the raw materials we're using. Also, we were very frustrated with the negative contribution we're all doing when we build anything, whether the energy consumption that we use or the carbon emissions that we emit. We were also frustrated about the lack of human-centric designs when it comes to the buildings that we spend most of our time in. So these were the main drivers of why we decided to start Handover. So what we're doing at Handover is that we're mainly a design and build firm. We're focusing on cost-effective and environment-friendly building solutions. The main solutions we're currently adopting are the earth construction techniques with its different applications. Our biggest vision and our biggest mission is to be able to transform or to find an alternative solutions for our buildings that are environment friendly and economic and human centric. We work in several fields, so we work on residential projects, commercial projects, communal or development projects, and urban development as well. And we have some core values that we always stick to during our work in any kind of project, which first one is the human-centered design, and I'll talk a bit about it. Sustainability, so when it comes to the material we choose, when it comes to the design, when it comes to the whole process of the project, and even after we finish the project, it has to be very sustainable. Knowledge transfer, this is something that we also believe in, that you always have to include young architects and young professionals and community members, include them in the whole process and transfer the knowledge and even learn from them. And the last part is research-based. So we have a team working on R&D, and we're always exploring how we can enhance the building techniques that we work with, how we can even find new other techniques. So there's always research ongoing while we're working on our projects. So the methodology that we adopt, as I said, the human-centered design. So we always put the human needs and the beneficiaries and the clients that we work with in the center of the process of any project. So we always have to get them involved from the very, very beginning, from the design phase. We include everyone who's involved, all the stakeholders, we include them in all the processes. During the implementation, we always try to give them also the knowledge that we have and enhance their skills so that they know how to maintain their buildings, they know how to treat them, and they know how to preserve them as well. So very quickly, because I know most of the audience most probably know about earth construction, know a bit about the technicalities of it, but very generally, earth construction, as the name implies we use earth raw materials. So when we say earth, we mainly work with mud and sand and gravel, which is basically could be found anywhere. We could use stabilizers like cement or lime, but this is our main raw materials that we start forming our materials with. It's as you can see from the map, it's available in several regions. It's not something specific for a certain place or a certain region, but yes, it can be more used in some climate similar to Egypt, but it's very well known and people have used it for many years. So earth construction as a term includes different applications and include different techniques. The difference between them is the percentage of the mixture, percentage of the water, and how we use it, or the tools that we use or we get, or we can afford, so we can come up with the material, or we can come up, with the buildings. So I will mainly talk about two main techniques, as also a bit similar to what Professor Adel has said, the rammed earth and the compressed earth blocks, because rammed earth specifically is what we've been adopting till now. Besides these two techniques, we've been using natural stones in some of our projects, and also adobe in some of the workshops as well. So rammed earth is basically ramming layers of earth inside plywood, so that you can come up with a wall at a time. Instead of building bricks, we build walls. And this is a simple sort of illustration to show how it's done in reality. So we build a wall at a time using the plywood as formworks. Compressed earth blocks, it's more or less the same materials or the same raw materials with different mixtures, but instead of using plywood formworks, instead of building walls, we use compressors, whether manual or hydraulic or electric, to produce bricks. Usually this is easier to convince people with, because at the end of the day it's a brick and they're used to bricks. But maybe rammed earth at the beginning, people are not very common, or they're not used to it, so they need to see it by their own eyes, and they need to do it by their own hands so that they would know how it looks like. Some very basic facts about earth construction. As I said, we have billions of people till now still living in earth constructed buildings. Its materials is available everywhere. It's easy to be taught. It's biodegradable. It doesn't cause any waste. That's why it was one of the first drivers of why we're adopting it as a first material to test. Also, some facts about the economical fact. Till now, we've been able to detect a 25% less cost than the conventional techniques. In terms of environmental facts, it's 70% less embodied carbon, because we don't use any energy in the production of it. In terms of carbon emissions, also, we can reduce it to 45% less. And in terms of operational energy in the buildings that we build, it's almost 30%. And we try to detect or to validate these percentages by using simulations and by using sensors inside the buildings that are currently operating. In terms of living comfort, because one of the main benefits of earth construction and rammed earth is that the thermal insulation and the thermal conductivity. So these buildings produce a better indoor air quality and better comfort for inhabitants, and it maintains sort of a moderate humidity level, so that people or the inhabitants inside the buildings could feel more comfortable. And definitely in terms of aesthetics, you can see the colors and the natural look and the difference as well. So it's very different from the conventional buildings that we see everywhere. So people are now like excited and ready to see new designs and ready to see new looks in the built environment. So, and as I was just referring to, why now? Why we're sort of trying to make this revival for earth construction is because, yes, the construction industry has been rigid for years. The designs are more or less a bit similar to each other. So this is something new. This is something exciting for users and for developers. And as we started the presentation with the negative impact of the construction industry on the sustainability part and the climate change and global warming. So there was lots of alarms that we really needed change. So I'll walk you through some of the projects that we've done in Egypt. So that we need to show people that these techniques are really doable, and we've already have buildings that are existing and people are using them at the moment. So they're a bit scattered around the country. So we will start with the very first project that we did. That was an informal settlement in Cairo called Azbat Abu Ard. This was the first project that we did, which was a 2-housing unit for 2 brothers. We were just testing the rammed earth, how people would feel about it, how people would really accept it, how people will understand it, and how we would be able to teach it to them. And it turned out to be a very successful and a very smooth process. The house was almost 140 square meters, built with rammed earth, and it's plastered inside with mud. So that was our very first project. Afterwards, we moved to St. Catherine in Sinai, where we had a call from an initiative called Catherine Exists. And they wanted to build a community center for the local Bedouins in the area. And this community center is supposed to include a clinic and a multi-purpose unit and a gallery where they can show the traditions and culture of the space, and some facilities like toilets and open spaces for visitors to come and check the village. So in 2018, we finished the first phase, which was mainly the medical unit. And just last week, we finished the second phase, which is the multi-purpose unit and the facilities, the toilets, and they will be using it in some educational activities as well. And we've used rammed earth with natural stones, and all of these materials we were able to source from these mountains just behind the project. So it was all from the same, like almost few kilometers away from the site. And the third project was a school, a community school in Al Ayat, a place very close to Giza. Also, it was a call from an NGO called Man Ahyaha. They wanted to build a school for the people in the village. So we went there, we listened to them, and we knew exactly what they wanted. So we used rammed earth as well, stabilized with lime, and we used for the roofing vaulted roofs from fired red bricks. Yes, it includes almost 6 classrooms and administrative office and facilities like toilets and playgrounds. Yes, it's been operating for almost 3 years now, I guess. And that other project was a farmhouse in the outskirts of Cairo. They had an agricultural land and they wanted to build a place where they can go there. When they go to the farm, they can stay there, they can run their farm from, they can, excuse me, they can have a storage area for the crops. So this is what we have done for them. And also they have some future plans for an extension as well. So yes, they're also using it as a workshop. Also the same thing, we've used round earth, we've used some limestone because it was also available there, and we've used vaulted roofs also with fired red bricks. And this project is also again in Sinai, but in Dahab. This project was a tender from the Ministry of Environmental Affairs and UNDP. They wanted to do some rehabilitation and new construction in the Blue Hole or the Abu Galoum protected area. So because it's a natural protectorate, it had to be built with something very natural, something very local. So we built as well the whole project with rammed earth. So the project was sort of an urban development project. It contained several buildings. Most of them were administrative offices and facilities for the visitors. And beside, let me show you while I'm talking. So this was the first building, the entrance and the tickets room. This is the entrance of the protectorate. And then these were some toilets facilities, and we've used dry toilets techniques so that they can also save water because still it's they have some scarcity also when it comes to water. That's another administration building inside the site. We've used natural stones, rammed earth, some wood structures, and that was a watchtower because they needed for security in the site. And there are lots of urban elements around the site, from seating areas to benches to shades and parking areas and signage spots. And then we're going further to Upper Egypt. That's in Luxor. That was also was a residential unit for a local family there whose house was damaged from a fire accident, and one NGO wanted to help them, and they came to us and they said, we want to build a new house for them, and we want something that's a bit natural and sustainable. So we did it also with round earth and fired red bricks. The house has 7 family members, and we've sat with all of them. We learned about their needs, what do they want in their new house, how many rooms they want. During the design, it was a back and forth process. We had to change a lot of things in the design because we wanted to make sure that this new house would satisfy their needs. The coming 2 projects are still in the design phase. And we're currently testing the compressed earth blocks, so we'll be including them in these 2 projects. So this is a retreat facility in a farm. We want to build a place where people can go and attend workshops, and they can stay for a couple of days there. So it's also an urban development project. That's like the master plan of it. This is the dome, or the place where workshops happens in there. This is the place where the attendees can stay in while they're attending their workshops. This is a communal space. And that's the last project, which is a community school, also in Upper Egypt in Minya. And this was designed to be done with compressed earth blocks. This should be a bigger school than the last one. Also with vaulted roofs and some domes in some areas. We're still in the design phase. We're still preparing for the construction. And then moving to the workshops, as I said in the beginning, the knowledge transfer is a one core value that we're attached to. So we're always planning, preparing workshops, whether related to the projects we're doing or separately, so we can include individuals or students or anyone who's interested to learn about earth construction through a practical experience. So throughout these last years, we've done a couple of projects. Some of them were even outside of Egypt. We've done one in Jordan and one in Tunisia last year. The other ones were in Siwa, in Nuweiba. Yeah, we've done a couple of ones in Siwa, and yes, in Siwa actually. But they're always very interactive. They're always very informative. And at the end of the workshop, which is usually 10 days or 2 weeks maximum, they usually come up with something like a full wall or sort of something that has a use, and they can see the whole process from the finishing to the mixing to the ramming, everything. These are some of the awards that we've got throughout the years, and the dearest one to our hearts is definitely our nomination for the Aga Khan last year for 4 of our projects. And just recently also we did a consortium with 2 US-based companies, Colorado Earth and Earthblock International. We're doing this consortium so we can also strengthen our experience or our knowledge with compressed earth blocks, and so we can work on sort of a mega scale projects hopefully in the future. So yes, that was Handover. That was our work, and so happy again to be with you, and so looking forward to your questions and any of your comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was very interesting. A lot of projects
Thank you,
and a lot of questions as well.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
yeah, now we are moving to the third presenter, Maher. Engineer Maher, are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So please, Engineer Maher from Jordan, MAS Design Office. Would you please introduce yourself and then start your presentation?
Okay, my name is Maher Abu Samra. I am from Jordan. I studied in Iraq and work with Professor Abdul Wahid Al-Wakil, which is a famous Egyptian architect. Work with him like 10 years. Then I start my career here in Jordan. I have experience to design and build my own house as a first example here. In Jordan, we have a stone. We don't have the brick or adobe, which is famous in Egypt. Like in Egypt, the 1,000 bricks cost like $50. Here in Jordan, it costs 20 times, like $1,000. So the available material is a stone, and we use the stone in work. Sorry.
In the bottom of the screen, there is share screen, like next to participant. Just press share screen.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's not working.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
Fine?
No, it's not working. Yeah, you can just press share screen again. Can you please open the PDF?
Yeah.
Double click, yes. Yes, okay, okay. So it's fine now. Yes.
It's
It's
fine.
working. Yeah, it's working. Yes, yes.
Okay, now I will start here. I will start with the design plan for the concept. So I have like the land on the mountain, so we have a very sloped topography. Here on the plan, I have a courtyard, open courtyard, and we have like a traditional qa'a, which is sitting area. And I have here loggia in front of the swimming pool and Iwan with some kitchenette and toilets. We have a stair here up to the first floor. At the first floor, we have like a terrace and 2 bedrooms with the bathrooms and kitchenette. Here, the section of the building through the site with a different height of roofing system. So I have different kind of roof. We have like a dome on drums. We have catenary vaults. We have cross vaults and domes, shallow dome. Here there is the plan of qa'a, which is 2 Iwans, and at the middle we have a dome. And the dome height is like a 10 meters and the vaults around 6 meters. Here, isometric of the first concept before we start the construction. And it shows the courtyard at the middle. Another views. Here, inspired from the school of Hassan Fathi, which is he is the master of this kind of architecture in the last century. Here's some details. This is the qa'a, like a bottom view, axonometric, to see here the vaults, the arches, and the dome with screen. This is a 3D rendering for the courtyard with E1 setting, also rendering. When I start this project, there is no skilled labor on the market to do this kind of traditional architecture because the techniques is gone. Like from the first of the 19th century, 20th century, when they start using the reinforced concrete, gradually all this laborers and craftsmen, they convert to the normal concrete, so it's not available. Here, the slide of what we have in Jordan, the local stone, in general, they cut it like for cladding, even mechanical fixation or the traditional one, they put cement on the back. But the cheapest materials available here, which is this white stone or any color of the stone, like the thickness is 5 or 4 centimeters by 20 or 25, and the length is variable. So I decide to use this unit because it's available to have the vaults and the cross vaults. Not like Nubian way to have to build the vault without shuttering. I use a wooden shutter to carry the stones before adding the key lock and removing the shutter. Here also some rendering to show the interiors of the spaces. Here, those are the people which I train them and work together on the site. First of all, we use the material coming from the excavation. We have like a 1,000 cubic meter of the stones, of the rocks. So we cut it on the site and reuse it. Here we can see the wooden shutter before remove it, and the stones, how we arrange it at the top of the wooden formworks. Here also some images from the construction showing the vaults carried on a stone arch with window, with the shadow details, screens. Here we can show also the cross vault shutter, and then how we built it and how we cut the stones, always perpendicular on the curvature of the pointed arch or whatever the profile of the arch. This is also the cross vault shuttering inside and before and after removing the shutter. Here we have different kind of ceiling. This is intersected vault. I use it for the kitchen. And here you can see how we, at the top right image, this is first of all, we put the shutter of the main vault. Then we have like 8 cross. And then at the lower left image, we have, you can see how we arrange the stones to have this shape before removing the shutter. On each intersection, we have like a key, which is a big stone piece tilted from 4 sides. Here we can see the intersected vault from the interior after removing the shutter, and use the lime to fill the joint between the stone pieces. And I start also carving some stones while we are working. So this part of the details. Here also we can see the stair carried on the half of vault. Another details, some calligraphy, some here the courtyard before finished. Some details, how we use the available tools of the market. Here, like example of stalactites, muqarnas. I took the design inspired from Sultan Hassan Mosque, like 2 rows of stones. We carve it, each piece. Some details for column capital or column base and niches. Here, how we do the arch and how we built it, even in small pieces. Then we try the big stone pieces like this arch, 1 meter width. Here also, you can see the 4 arches, which is carried later on the drum and the dome. We have different width of walls and arches, 75 centimeters, sometimes 1 meter. Here we try to replace the wooden formwork with just a steel bar to carry the stone arch, because we cut the stone pieces in exact dimensions, so there is no mortar, just a drive. We fix the arches dry. Some ornaments and details. Here also you can see how we start the building the arch. Here, this picture showing the crane carry the stone pieces because it's heavy, and the labor will just skilled labor put it in exact location. Another catenary vault with the steps of constructions. Here also I use this cladding stone pieces, which is available on the market here. Here, the last picture, this is a book about descriptive geometry for Al-Buzjani. I wrote a book in Arabic about him. I have some video and another project. I prefer to show another project. New share. Okay. I hope. Here I use also some tile patterns using from the stones. This is the second project also. I did it here in Jordan using the local stone. We use the previous technique of traditional construction by using a thick wall and curved vaulted ceilings. Arch like around the swimming pool. And I'm happy to receive any question later. Sorry for...
Yeah, it's fine. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, if I still have time, I can display some videos or extra details.
How long is the video?
It's short.
More than 5 minutes?
More or less.
Yeah, if it is less, yes, we have time. But if it is more, we can move to the next one.
Okay. Here, the last videos from the construction site, showing some people, they are working on the lime, on the stairs and the courtyard. And this is the result. Like we have decorative arcade here, near the setback. And here, this is the stair, the E1, and these stone pieces coming from the excavation itself, and only the arches we cut it outside. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And now we had the fourth presentation, and I'm so excited about it. The first three presentations was about the local construction techniques and materials used in Middle East and Africa. But now we had the fourth presenter, Nia, is going to present her vision about the future. She is from Kenya, and I'm so excited to see her presentation. So please, Nia, would you like present yourself and then start your presentation?
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nedi. I come from Kenya and I am a recent graduate of Dessau Graduate School of Architecture. I'm going to be presenting what I did for my master's thesis, which was a woman's craft village, which was essentially a research project that was looking into the intersection of vernacular architecture in Kenya and technology, and finding a way where we can bridge the gap between the way women in Kenya build and using technology to further the methods of architecture and also to empower them. So I will show a video, and then after that, I think we can discuss any questions that anyone has. Give me a minute.
Yeah, it's fine. Screen share bottom at the end of the screen. You can see it.
Yeah, I just not finding the.
At the yes, it's coming.
Okay.
We can see the video. You know, you are sharing just your it is your folders, not the video.
Yeah. Okay. Stop share. I don't see the video that I'm supposed to share. I don't know why.
Just start the video and then start the presentation. But you know, the music looks like very exciting.
Yeah. Let me see.
Just start the video, pause it, and then share your screen.
Yeah.
Select
When I'm trying to share on the screen, it's not there.
So just share your full screen.
The thing is, it's only showing the folders, and it's not showing the video.
Maybe I can show it.
Yes.
It's fine. I can show it. Yeah.
Our savior. Yeah. Thank you, Sina.
Assistant
Yeah.
Nayeli Loyagalani, Kenya. The project starts by analyzing the fourth industrial revolution, looking into inclusion and access for the marginalized. It utilizes social systems theory to address the need for using technology to get social justice. In Kenya, the northern region is made up of patriarchal social units. This has marginalized the women who are exposed to violence. This results in them removing themselves and forming their own villages, creating counter systems. The woman-only village is therefore born to be a space for refuge. To design a woman village, a typical Kenyan village is analyzed to identify the activities of women in the village. Different activities were picked and marked out depending on the different inhabitants expected to stay at the village. Using the open-linked planning of the neighboring Elemolo community, the activities are planned out in a way to link them. The material system takes from Kenyan vernacular architecture, planning from the homes that women build around Kenya. The earth architecture forming the geometries and activities from southern Kenya. The light wooden structure forming the shading from northern Kenya. The woven panels and windows from moving systems of women around Kenya. The project is built by the women in collaboration with digital methods and robotics. The earthen structure is done using robotic fabricated woven framework that are assembled on site. The women use a spraying method to plaster clay onto the frames. The shading structure is made from the vertically fabricated wooden pieces. The women use augmented reality headsets to put the pieces together. The reading of the panels.
I have yeah. Can we make sure that we are sharing the video sound, because it feels like we are hearing from an external source, so it is not 100% clear.
Architecture and technology to empower women to influence social behavior and effect systemic change.
Okay. Yeah. I love the music, and you know that was very interesting project.
Include a MIDI maybe.
I think
What?
I could present the PDF, which would be better.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me. So essentially the project that I worked on was an interrogation of the fourth industrial revolution and technology. So because we are looking at the fourth industrial revolution, we're thinking of technology being used across the board in architecture, for human advancement. So technology is used in physical, ecological, economical, biological, educational, and socio-political specters of life. But then technology has not really reached all the people. So if you think of the people in the global south or in rural areas, they won't have access to technology. So my project was, the problem was reaching out to patriarchal societies in northern Kenya and how they would use architecture and technology to empower themselves. So essentially, I looked into a woman's only village in Samburu, Kenya, where women actually build their own huts and build all the huts within the villages. This was inspiring to me because even in architecture education in Kenya, we are taught of vernacular architecture, but we're not taught of it in depth. And for me, it was interesting to look at different kinds of buildings done all over Kenya and see that the women that are building these building architecture that is contextual, that works for them and their families. And this was the inspiration for how I approach the design. So because I was using social system theory, I think architects need to look at how people exist in societies, because that is how they formulate their way of life from, and the building also has to go according to the way they formulate their way of life. So I looked into activities and how women exist in their villages and the activities that they take part in. And this was the inspiration for, and then I asked a couple of women of the kind of architecture that the kind of spaces that they would like to exist in. So then I mapped out the activities according to the different users, and this gave me sort of a kind of spatial relationship. So relating different activities according to spatial, so giving a spatial, physical spatiality to an activity. And then, so essentially what I was thinking of is as architects or as designers, we have the expertise, but then we're not supposed to, I don't think it's community-based design is supposed to be us bringing our expertise for the communities. It should be us learning from the communities, or us enhancing whatever the communities already do. I think the women in Kenya already have a system of building that is intelligent. So there's the weaving system, there's the using of clay, using of weaving systems, using of touch. And I thought this would be, technology would be a great way to sort of bridge the gap between their ways of building and the technical skills that we as architects have acquired. So the site is in Turkana in northern Kenya, an area known to be very dry. So looking at the different climatic conditions and how they build also, I came up, and also looking at the different types of vernacular architecture in Kenya. Kenya we have a variety of cousins of different climates. So we have much wetter climates, we have drier climates in the north, much wetter climates in the south. In the central, it's in the highlands, so it's much colder. So different forms of architecture go according to the different kinds of climates. And I looked into this and thought of having a sort of hybrid that merges or intertwines all the different ways that people build in Kenya. And also then looking at how women build in Kenya and learning from them. I think because the women are building for their families, they look into how their families wish to exist, or how their families go around. Some of these huts or buildings are also, they can be carried and moved, because they're for pastoralist community, they can be carried and moved to different places. And this was interesting for me. And so I looked into those different ways. So looking at those, I started doing different studies on the design and how I could do the design system. So in the area that I was studying, there's a community called the El Molo community, and the way they arrange their spaces is sort of cyclic system, where the entry, the living, the storage, it's sort of like you move through the house and then move outside. So it's a very fluid sort of movement. And then this, for me, coming together with the way I'd studied the activities, I thought this would be a very interesting way of bringing the activities together to give spatial relations. And that is how I came up with the final design, which also looked into the cultural coding, because I think in Africa, the way we build is, I don't think we can come up with a monolithic way of building, even though we have some systems that are similar. I think our building is very culturally coded. So sometimes color has a cultural meaning. Material also, not necessarily just for environmental, but also has a cultural meaning. So this is very important to me. And I think it's important to think about this when we're coming up with the designs. So from the spatial relations and the coding that I came up with, so I put up the spaces together and came up with the final design, which is then the women's village. So as a conclusion, so material system, like I said, is I came up with a hybrid system, so using of clay, which formulated the geometry of activities. Then these are from the southern Kenya, and then the clay would be a shotcrete method. I thought of using a shotcrete method, which has a binding material that would be shot. So using the method of shotcreting, that would be on a woven framework. And then because of the hotter climates, there would be a shading to cover up the activities that are not necessarily within physical spaces. This would be the woven framework that would be woven along a framework of wood or timber, as is seen on the northern region. In terms of fabrication, because I want the bridging of technology and the systems of building, I thought of using, because using computation and parametric design to formulate design, then having a system where the women themselves would build the project, because they already have they already do their own building. So for the architects, it's just bringing in the design and how to use it. So I thought of using virtual reality headpieces and phones, and a sort of alliancing between designers. The designers could even be not necessarily even in the region, but then the women use the virtual reality sets, digital methods to kind of come up with the design and assemble it on site, as is seen here. So the different ways and the different methods that the women can use their already method, or can use the methods they already use, but then also in conjunction with technological devices and technological tools and technological ways of building and coming up with the village themselves. So in conclusion, for me, it's just a feedback system where we have technology learning from the women, because the women already have a very intelligent way of building, and the women also use learning from the technical aspects of it, because for example, if it would be more efficient to have a robotic shotcreting method for the clay, or maybe a research system where the material and experimentation is a feedback system. So the whole building process would come up with the feedback system between, so creating this woman-robot collaboration and then coming up with the final design. And that is the end of it.
Thanks, Nidhi. That was very interesting. Very different point of view. They are talking about really totally natural local material, and I remember Professor Adel started his presentation about the financial impact and the local labor and how they are building their own houses and homes with this very cheap materials. But you had a vision of using robots, VR, and so on to build the future. It looks like it is, from a point of view, it's very interesting to see how we can build our futures in Africa. But the financial situation and the 21st century competences we had in Africa and all over the world, the situation looks like very, so it's somehow very complicated when I think about using these kind of materials and techniques. Do you had a vision regarding these kind of financial situations, and how is the situation in Kenya nowadays, and what technologies is available? Is there any kind of technologies available like in construction or not yet? Like, in Egypt, we had this kind of somehow CNCs and maybe sometimes, but it's very rare, robotic arms, but related to marble industry and so on. But still, we don't have this kind of futuristic technique. We're still using some kind of very traditional techniques, not just sand and mud and so on, but still very conventional way of constructions. So what gives you this kind of inspiration, and how it relates to our current situations, financial situations, and so on?
I mean, I think the financial aspect of it is definitely something I thought about a lot. So that's why I thought it would be, because all these has to be a multidisciplinary sort of framework, because it has to be, it's policy based, it's governmental, it's non-governmental, civic society. So I think the financial aspect of it would have to be thought of across the board. But I think in terms of the way we talk about even the global south and technology, I think we need to reframe the way we think about technology, because technology is reaching the global south. I mean, right now we have in Kenya, for example, we have proliferation of internet and internet services and things like that. I think also thinking of it in terms of outside of access to phones and stuff, I think also thinking of technology in terms of architecture, because in Kenya right now, we don't necessarily use technology like robotic arms and things like that in architecture. I think because we are having conversations in Africa about the proliferation of technology, then it needs to go across the board. We need to think about how we are existing and we're moving forward as a continent or as a region, and still moving forward also in the technological aspect. I think also I think also the research aspect is important in terms of the material, because I think all the projects that were shown before are amazing ways of the way we use material, vernacular material. But I think if we think of it further, like if we research in terms of how can we make clay, how can we make it more efficient the way we use clay, how can we build multi-story buildings with clay or this art material. So I think it goes across the board, and it needs to be a conversation that happens not just with just designers and architects, but all over.
Very interesting point of view. You know, I used to. I see the world from your point of view actually, as I used to be dreaming while designing and so on. I'm working in 3D clay printing, but it is still, you know, when we think about Africa, how we can challenge this financial situation and so on. And I remember the first statement Professor Adel started with how it costs. So I had a question for you, Professor Adel. These kind of buildings, in terms of financial situation, how much it cost around, you know?
Usually we can say 40% is cheaper than any other structure system. We save 40% cheaper than the cement structure. But the problem is not here. Problem is we have to look to this as a whole package. We save energy. We have opportunity to recycle the whole house. We have used an available material. We used and we improved traditional way of structure. And all of this is so important nowadays, to thinking about how can we create an architecture for the future. I don't mean we should not refuse any high technology. No, that's wrong. We should try to do some investigation in the high tech. How can the high tech helping us to improve our local material, to make the work easier? Look, nowadays, to build, to use rammed earth, they improve a rammer. Martin Rauch, he improved a robot to do the work for the ramming. All of this is really some and big steps to reach improvement in using local building material. But we should not forget something important. Human is important. The human is important. How can we create something to make our human more happy, comfort, sleeping well? And he is fed up of the plastic culture. He's tired of the plastic culture. He is tired of all of this. And he's looking now for the quality of life, not the standard of life, the quality of life. The relation between human is important. How can we create such an architecture to help human being to have a better human relation? Thank you.
Yeah. So you mean it is more friendly and
Yeah.
more simple life. It's more friendly and more simple life to have these kind of architectures to live in, like the earth architectures. But I still have a concern. How many stories, how many floors can we have in one building?
Yes. We can do until 5 or 6 stories, but
Wow.
let me say, and Egypt have a 1 million square kilometer. Only from the 1 million square kilometer is 3.7% occupied. The rest is desert.
Okay.
We have to go out of the Nile Valley and go to the desert and look for the better. And we have to find another solution than sitting in the big cities looking for all of this comfort, plastic Coca-Cola.
So you mean more distributed communities rather than vertical communities?
Look to our high-rise building here. Usually there are a lot of problems. Water coming not until only the 3rd floor or the 5th floor. We need bump machine to push the water, drinking water. We don't have this machine. We don't have this energy. We suffer. The electricity is cut every day in Garden City. Yeah? So we need to think about a new package of a quality human architecture.
Okay. So
with less machine, with less plastic painting. This is what I do with it.
Hi, yeah. I wanted, if possible, to kind of follow up with proposing to reflect on a reference that might actually connect this reflection on technology and the reflection on ways of life that you're proposing now, in reference to the concept of appropriate technology. Because Professor Fahmy started introducing himself saying that you also teach appropriate technology. That is a concept that I think was originally very, very famous and diffused in the 1960s and 70s, and a lot in relationship to the work by Fritz Schumacher, Small is Beautiful, that was making this reflection about ways of life, accessibility to certain technology, and therefore what type of technology is appropriate for different environment based on their industrial and economical situation, and then how to kind of bridge this gap and make a holistic reflection about this. So I'm wondering how the concept of appropriate technology actually should be updated today, that we're a few decades passed from the 1973, and technologies improved extremely and have diffused around the world a lot. And therefore, and I sincerely have not seen a lot of revisions or a lot of, interesting revisions of this concept, where I think it should be a very interesting topic of discussion. And so I wanted to know maybe the point of view of all the speakers. I mean, Professor Fahmy and Nidhi, since you touched on this, but maybe also Radwa, since you also made a point on the technology of construction and accessibility.
I think, Professor Fahmy, I was having a discussion before.
Good that you mentioned. It's very good to mention Ernest Fritz Schumacher, the big great man. He's really create appropriate technology, and small is beautiful, and all of us, we learn a lot from him. And until now, we need really to understand the advantage of using our appropriate building, because this is the solution. Solution for what? Solution for the economic situation, solution for the pollutions and emissions we need to think about an appropriate technology for us in development countries. This is what Ernest Fritz Schumacher tried to explain, and he succeeded. He succeeded to show us and a good example for an appropriate solution for us in development countries.
You know, what I see very interesting in these kind of constructions is that you can, it is how general public can build it on their own. It is very cheap and very useful and durable, and you can recycle it and so on, all these positive sides. But the main point I see is that it motivates the general public to interact with each other. Somehow the local community can cooperate in building their own urban tissue and their own houses. But I see it, if we go back for a very simple life and very simple city urban fabric, it can be done like this. But nowadays, with our complicated infrastructures like internet, electricity, and so on, it depends more on design, urban design. Somehow the general public can't be the influencer in designing and construction and so on. The world is somehow changing. So I think the point Antonio raised about revisiting these kind of theories and concepts maybe somehow real due to the complex world that we are living in nowadays. It's a thought.
I just
add something. Oh, yeah, go on.
No, go ahead, Sina.
So I think it's really interesting to see these collections of projects next to each other. And I have two points. One is, it is interesting that in Middle East and Africa, the role of architects is somehow different than the role that we know in West. And it was also interesting in the beginning of the lectures, Ahmed was referring to all of the presenters, Mohandes or like engineer. Please share your screen. So the fact that architects in those regions are by nature a bit more multidisciplinary, I would say, and they are more aware of construction and fabrication, not fabrication, but construction techniques. This is making somehow the role of architects different. So one thing that I would like to maybe know more and learn more about is the way you sort of see these differences, if there is a difference for you. And how do you see the role of design? Because I remember that Radwa said that she is a civil engineer. So how do we sort of design in such a different, basically, cultural infrastructure? So this is one thing. Another thing is about participatory design and the way the public sort of receive these new ways of building.
I think Sina. Are you
hear me?
still? Yes.
I think when it comes to public, if you want to introduce something new, we have three ways of introducing this. One is through branding, right? The Coca-Cola brand comes, and since it is Coca-Cola, everyone would take it. The Zaha Hadid brands comes, since it is Zaha, everyone would embrace it. Another way of introducing something new to the public is through education, right? In a kind of a bottom-up way, we educate people to sort of embrace and accept something new, which can be better. Another way is through the process of de-learning. People are educated, but they are mal-educated. And to a certain extent, I think, since there are potentials and still the society in many, to a certain extent, in those regions are sort of ready to embrace something new, we have the chance to sort of introduce these new ideas. So first question, how do you see that this idea of the discipline of architecture on one hand, and on the other hand, how we can sort of introduce these new ways of building and technologies, knowing the fact that we can use any of these three techniques of that I mentioned, like branding or learning or de-learning. Maybe I would like to start with Radva or Maher to reflect on this.
Sure. Yes, I can go with the first part that you mentioned about the interdisciplinary part. And yes, I come from the construction side. That's why the core of our projects is not just the design and not just the construction, but it's a combination between both. We as a team, we're a team of architects and civil engineers and site engineers. So we felt that this is the only way to be able to create this sort of equilibrium if we are doing the whole process, at least in the beginning, because we're trying still to, even if we're not inventing these kind of techniques, we're only maybe reviving them, enhancing them, but still we don't think that we can only like trust that we can do part or one processes and then depend on someone else, whether a contractor or a designer, to do the rest. But also saying this, I'm going to say that in some projects as well, even now, we sometimes collaborate with architects, we collaborate with designers, we go into joint ventures because we still know that we can always learn from each other. We can work on some project that we are only the implementers or the contractors. If we are sure about the design, we're sure that it fits all the criteria of the project we work in. And that will make me also go to your second part about the design. So yes, this, to be able to form this balanced solution, it's not only the materials that would accomplish this. And as Dr. Adil was saying, even when Ahmed, you were asking about the cost, yes, we never answer this question in a nutshell that yes, it saves X%, but usually it's a package. Usually it's a full solution. It's not just an instant result, but it's something. That's why you have to include the material, you have to include the design, you have to include even the waste you're coming up with, so you can say that this is a full sustainable solution, that this is a low-cost solution, that it creates this kind of impact as well on the community. So we cannot see it as one thing separate than the other. It has to be very integrated. And even sometimes we have to integrate other infrastructure solutions that it's not in our own area of expertise, and that's why collaborations and joint ventures are important. For example, if we want to create a full sustainable project and a net zero project, sometimes we have to think about water solutions, about energy solutions, and we're not really experts in these areas. So we always have to bring on board other experts so we can get this integrated solution. So, and also adding the part that you said about participatory, I believe that the community and the beneficiaries and the people who we are building for are the ones who have the actual solutions or the real solution. Maybe our only role as designers or as contractors is that we just translate what they have in mind. So as Ahmed, you were saying, now, yes, we need more architects and urban planners to plan for the future, but I honestly think that the local peoples and the local community members, they do have the answers to their solutions, to their issues, and we're only guiding them, we're only facilitating this. Yes, we're adding the engineering part, but it will never be a perfect solution without including them in the process.
Totally agree. Yes. Engineer Maher, Arc Maher, you have a reflection, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, first, you know, it's not like a trend when you compare the traditional architecture to, let's say, Zaha Hadid, what Mr. Mustafa said. Here, the traditional technique is not a luxury, especially in our countries. Like, look at Gaza. They destroy the country after the war. Look at Syria, Iraq. A lot of building is demolished, and they don't, like in Gaza, they don't have the power, and they cannot even import the steel or the cement to rebuild the country. So it's not a luxury to have the traditional way. They must, if they want to build anything, they have to go back to the traditional techniques. That's one point. Another point, here in our third world, in Africa or in the Middle East, whatever, the lifespan for the reinforced concrete is like a 50 or 70 maximum year. So that's mean the whole cities in the whole countries, they are rebuilt every 50 years. So that's a lot of waste of energy and money and materials, even nothing stuck in the memory as an identity. Look at any city, after 50 years, you will not see any building exist. So it's not a luxury. We don't have that money. All of our countries, they have a lot of loans, and the economy situation is very bad. So why we rebuild the whole cities every 50 years? If you are using the brick, the lifespan of the brick around 700 years. The lifespan for the stone starting from 1,000 years. Look at old cities and the downtown in the Europe or in the, let's say, Turkey, you will find 100 years building and still exist and survive. When the technology came, the internet or whatever, they just implement this new technology to the existing buildings. So this is the point. And I have one question for Engineer Radwa. Why you are using a flat slab and what kind of slabs you are using? This is nice concept to have shuttering with this mud, because you are saving the time of building to have one massive wall. But did you think about any solution similar to this for the slabs, for the roof system? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. For now, most of the buildings we've done were requested by our clients to be one floor or maybe two floors for future extension. So we've been actually testing some roofing types, but we've adopted mostly were the bricks, the vaults and the dooms. We've adopted the wooden roofing as well. We've used tree trunks. That was one option as well. So it depends actually on the application, and it depends on the place we're working in. So we never go to a project with a certain whether system or material in mind, but it depends on the need, and it depends on what we can find on site. So for now, they're all wall bearing. We've only used, as I said, the wooden roofs and the bricks. But if we in some project we need to use bigger spans, maybe if in some project we need to use more than 2 stories, maybe that's something that we can always consider. But for now, it wasn't really the case in any of the projects that we have done so far.
Thank you. I think you can combine the concept of this robot and like a 3D, which they are trying to marketing now.
The 3D printing, you mean?
You can try it for the vaulting system, because if you see the Nubian way to construct the vault, they just put it tilted and they start the vault on the tilted side. So I guess this kind of method, you can use it with this 3D pumping or whatever, and you can get the vault with the same concept of the walls what you have.
Yes, 3D printing is definitely one hot topic, and we've seen other companies have done it with mud, but it's still, I think it still needs a lot of R&D. It needs a lot of investment as well. That's also one thing, is that we're trying as much as we can, if we want to transfer this knowledge to the local communities, to always include equipment and tools that they can always refer to, they can purchase on their own. We're not sure if this, maybe in the other commercial projects that we're currently working on, this could be something that we can think of or apply it. But we're even, myself, I think it still needs a lot of R&D when it comes to the mixture itself, to be able to use it in pouring instead of ramming. And the timing also, it needs to be able to pour. That's like some technicalities when it comes to the mixture itself. But yes, that probably needs some research, and we haven't been there yet. But actually, what we're trying to shift now when it comes to vaults and domes, instead of using the fired red bricks, which we had to use in the last projects because we didn't have the machine of the compressed earth blocks and we were short in time, so we had to use the fired red bricks. But now we've manufactured a compressor, like our press, where we can do our own, or like manufacture our own bricks, so we can use at least adobe or compressed earth blocks in the roofing instead of using the fired brick ones. So that's like the one step further we have been, but still 3D printing is still on the list, but not at the moment.
Okay, thank you everyone for your really meaningful presentations. Kind of leading into that, I really appreciate your participatory design that you all show, and it's kind of a vision. It's not only a design, it's really about sharing. And I thought it was really interesting because you're not only showing the connection between humans and environment through the vernacular, but also between humans. And I think this combination of intelligence and knowledge that you show is fantastic. And so, you know, I think we saw it in Nidhi and also Mr. Abu Samra in educating people, right? And kind of sharing that knowledge. I think Radra also just mentioned that is kind of a almost multi-generational thinking here that I really appreciate. And so my question is, with training the people that you're training for your projects, what is your vision that happens after that? Do you think, or what's your kind of feedback that you've gotten? Are these people going out and doing more projects with that knowledge? And how would you like to see it in the future? Maybe Mr. Abu Samra?
Yeah, for me, here, I trained around 10 people working with me. Until now, we have a project, part of them coming from Syria. So in Syria, they have in the province the idea of having load-bearing stone walls, but they don't have the knowledge how to have the roof or the slab. So they cast a reinforced concrete for the slab, while the walls are load-bearing walls from stone. So most of them, after they worked with me 3 years, they said, we can do that in a simple way without helping from architect or civil engineer, because the needs there, it's a simple, like you have 4 meter span room or 3.5, it's enough. And from a small experience, you can get like a 75 or 50 centimeter thickness from the stone, and you can carry a small vault. So for them, it's now easy to start working alone and building this experience in different places. So this is the point. And the problems here in our country, we don't have those kind of skilled people. And the universities or the colleges or the training centers, sometimes they train people on the crafts, but they don't teach how to build without reinforced concrete. Even if you ask an engineer in the university if you can build like a 4-story buildings without steel or without reinforced concrete, they will say, no, we cannot. But the fact is we can. So this is the answer of your question.
Thank you. And I also had a question.
I had, I had a problem to raise here, regarding Victoria's question and Engineer Maher answer. The point in using these kind of traditional techniques, it is very easy and in a low cost. You can easily build these bearing walls or just with some kind of training and previous experience, you can build as well domes, vaults, and so on. And I know a lot of local citizens that used to do it for, for themselves without any help from either architect or engineer. So the problem is with this very low cost material and durable and easily to build, that sometimes people just do it on their own without going back, to the architect or the engineer. And here we had a problem, it is there is how slums came. So people, it is very durable and it can live for hundreds of years, like Mr. Abu Samra said. So it is a problem. I don't know if you had an imagination of how these kind of problems can be solved, as it is very local, very cheap material and affordable, easy for everyone to build. So as well, regulations isn't fair enough. It is not, it is not enough for persuading people to not to do it on your own. You need the architect help and so on, maybe by motivating people, raising knowledge, awareness. But it's a problem. The easiness, you were talking about, it is a current problem in some rural areas.
I think I understand that, but I wanted to give also Radva and Nidhi, before we go to that question, sorry, I meant to cut off, but I wanted to give Radva and Nidhi also an opportunity to talk about their vision of educating communities and kind of spreading the knowledge. I understand that that's a problem, Ahmed. Maybe we can get back to that in a second.
Victoria, I would also love to hear that answer.
Yeah, let me start with the first part and then I'll go to Ahmed's comment. So yes, in our case, teaching people and like transferring the knowledge is a one common thing. And as Engineer Mahan was saying, also here in Egypt, students don't, whether civil engineers or architects, they don't get to learn about these kind of methods. So that's why we've started this track of education from the very beginning of our company. And now I'm also a lecturer in the German University in Egypt, and we're teaching the students from the first year what's earth construction, what's appropriate building techniques, and we're showing them with hands-on workshops and training how to build with. When it comes to labors, so it's usually a mutual process. So we learn from them and they teach us their traditional techniques, and we can have some comments from the engineering perspective, and that's what changed maybe the way that they've been building with. And sometimes also we teach them something new, and the impact that we've seen so far is that in some of the projects, or usually what we do is that if we're working in some remote or in a village or somewhere like in the outskirts, we usually bring the local community, we give them training, and then they become the laborers of the project, and then we move on to the other project. If in any project afterwards we couldn't find, for any reason, laborers or workers to train, sometimes we get the assistance of the previous laborers that we trained, and this becomes a new skill that they have that brings in extra revenues to them and to their families. So this is one impact that they get. The other impact is that we've heard a couple of laborers while we're finishing up a project is that they want us to lend them the equipment and the tools because they have this new house that they're building and they want to use rammed earth in it. So we happily, of course, lend them the tools and they would use it in their own private projects. So that's one of the main important things in the company, is that we always try as much as we can to give a thought about the impact that we're leaving in the community, and not just with the actual projects that we do. The point that Ahmed said, well, I don't really agree with you, is that this is a problem and that's an issue, and that's something that we need to maybe do it in a more difficult way so that people would never do it on their own. I wouldn't really be on the same page with you, because I don't think that's how slums are formed. I don't think this is a reason of why these organic developments happen. Is for many other reasons, economical, political, many other reasons, but being an easy and affordable way shouldn't be a bad thing. Yes, again, as I was saying, it's a mutual learning process. So for example, when we were working in Luxor and Aswan, we've seen the traditional techniques with stones and with mud. Some were very beautifully made, and some were they were like they had some catastrophic issues, structure issues to be more specific. It's because it has been done organically, and that has been going well for them. But as an engineer, when you go and see these structures, you can have some comment and you can teach them these comments so that afterwards they would do it in a better way. But that doesn't mean that they don't, that the easiness of these techniques is a driver for chaos or a driver for slum areas. For me, the slum areas that we've worked in were never built with mud, or were never built with earth. They were built with more cheaper and more, I would say, clumsy issues. And this is not called a traditional methods of construction. That's like a different ways of construction. So yeah, like this is the only comment I have in mind when you've said this comment. At least in the beginning, I don't agree that this is an issue. I wouldn't say so, but yeah, maybe we can go after Nidia. I know you want to comment, but maybe yes, we can open the discussion more about this angle.
I think I agree with Radha on both the points actually. So I'd like to present the dichotomy between urban and rural. So a lot of the vernacular architecture that's found, especially in Kenya, is found in the rural areas. So in the rural areas, they have been building like this. They do build like this. They do use the local material because that's what is there and that's what they need to survive. I think presenting architects as teachers is a bit, I don't know, it feels very top down, which I don't think necessarily works in certain settings like in Africa, because I mean, the way they build is it's either communal or someone builds and they just put up the structure by themselves. If they have the sticks, if they have the mud, if they have the dung and they have the roots, they will do it. So I think the space of designers, of architects, of engineers here is presenting not necessarily a better way, but an improvement of the systems that are already there. Because, for example, in Kenya, the way it works is even touching on the slum dwellers, most people move to the urban areas. Like in Africa, they say about a very big percentage of us live in urban areas, but most people don't have permanent housing in urban areas. So that's why informal settlements and all these things come up, because people will stay in urban areas for the opportunities, then move back to the rural areas to settle down. So people are not necessarily looking to live in these big skyscrapers and things. Everyone also wants to have land and build their own housing. So I think presenting an improvement of the systems that are already there for them to build is important as architects and designers. I think also the education system needs to be a little bit more vibrant in terms of the vernacular and the way our own systems of building. I went through years of school in Kenya, and it was never presented that these are intelligent systems of building, or the way we approach climate, because the way we approach climate is very contextual. The way we do it is very contextual to us and the way we live and our culture and everything. I think this needs to be more enhanced in architecture schooling and architecture teaching, and also in practice, because we all want to build these masonry buildings with reinforced concrete, but people don't necessarily want to live in these buildings. People still go back and to the old buildings. In terms of, as for the questions of slums, I think especially the way people live in Nairobi, even in terms of like planning and urban planning, is people are always going to create what works for them. And that's why, like in informal settlements, like they create what works for them. So they build within their own community how they want to build, how they want to work with it. I think it's important for planners to work with the communities and how they want to create amongst themselves. I think adopting these rigid, grids and stuff that we find, and mostly in the West, that does not necessarily work, because we live differently in African societies and African cities. Even the way you look at the way African cities operate, you can find like a row of buildings, very skyscrapers and things, and people still have small shacks and small buildings around there, because there's a need for that. So we need to think of, I think the way communities already exist, already designed, is very important, and it's crucial that we learn from them. In my view, it's always like designers need to learn from the people that they will design with, because we're not coming in, it's not a top-down decision, it's you're sitting among people who already know. So is how I see it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to give, sorry that I cut you off earlier, Abu Samra, if you wanted to talk about the slum point that Amit brought up.
For me, let's say this natural forces, when it goes down from the slabs or the roof, if domes or vault, to the squenches or pendentives, to the arches, then to the columns, to the ground. If you are working with a traditional technique, first of all, you have a beauty comes out from these natural forces, how it goes down. So I'm not worried about a skilled labor without any engineering support. Just he can feel the natural forces, how it will goes down from the top to the ground. If he start feel it, that the arch or the opening, it will carry the load, and the slabs, that's the experience. So the result, it will become beautiful. It's not ugly at all. And the concept of using this traditional way of construction is, it's not like a contracting. We cannot do it like a contracting. We have to find like a sharing or people support when they start want to build for them like a house. They will help each other so they can build many houses, like what Hassan Fathi said. one man, he cannot build one house, but 10 men can build 10 houses. So this is the point. And for Radwa, she said that the skilled labor need some engineering or architects or civil engineering touches or instructions to keep them on the track. That's correct, but in general, those skilled labor, they have experience more than the engineers. So if you have like a master builder, old man, he can feel the natural forces. The result of the buildings they gave you, it's better than any architect or any smart or gifted architect or structural design can create.
Yes, actually, I started with this point, and I said in the beginning that we learn from them as much as they learn from us. And I only gave one example of one village that they had. I'm not sure why you're saying no, but I'm only referring to one example. But I've mentioned that this is one of our motto in the company, that we never go to any project or any community feeling that we know more than them. That's actually not what happens. So I'm just rephrasing.
Yes, I would like to just rephrasing my question again. So, you know, these techniques is very interesting. I really adore these kind of techniques, and I would like to mention that my grandfather house was built of mud, and it was built by his own father. So it is somehow 100 years old, and it is two-story building, and it is still till now it is still exists, you know. And I know it is not a slums way of construction. This is what I believe, but my question is how these kind of very simple construction techniques can influence the community for a better life, rather than being influenced more with the economic situation they are living in, you know. We are living in an economical situation, complicated economical situation, and from the other side, it's a kind of a living experience. So how we can influence them with these kind of construction techniques for more a better life, more than being driven with this kind of financial crisis they are living in, you know. This was my question.
Ahmed, before you are talking about how we can like spread this kind of construction, first of all, what's the problem you face or the obstacles you find when you decide to build? First of all, most of the regulations and the municipality, they refuse to give you a permit without drawings, design drawings with normal or conventional reinforced slabs. Like my example, my house, which I built it with stone, I have to give to the municipality to get the permit a drawing that the slab is 3 meter high and flat with reinforced concrete. So when you want to have this idea spreaded, you need a government support. You need like a craft center to train the laborers. Then the local material is available. So without government support, you will start like this, work individually with like a small project. They consider it like a luxury or for fun, not to solve the real problem we face. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I had a question. Thank you very much for all the speakers to come in and give inspirational talks. But it brings to mind that architects are part of this larger ecosystem. It's an economic system, and then there's historical and real challenges that we have to overcome. But my question is, in each of your situations, how can architects maybe collaborating with engineers or politicians or even investors make this better? Are there a series of steps? Is there an example that exists in the world that you could either bring to where you are, or is there examples from your life and your experience that you can give and inspire others to make change?
Yeah, I can start. Sorry, Nadi, if you can go ahead.
I just have two examples that I know, sorry. Two examples that I know that are sort of doing this vernacular architecture sort of framework and participatory design. We can look at mass design, not MAS, but MASS design group that's working across East and Central Africa to work with communities to put up projects that are, working with the material that's contextual. Also, from the same mass design group, there's the African Design Center that's sort of taking in fellows, young African designers, to learn from communities, to learn these kinds of ways. And they also source for funding. And then they put up projects like last year, they did a primary school in Rwanda. So I think these are some of there are many designers. In Nigeria, there's a designer called Fire Adeyemi, who's working to build sort of structures there's an area within Nigeria that it has a river within it. So that's where they're building sort of structures for people living in informal settlements. So I think there are very many ways in which people have found ways to work with this form of architecture and still get funding. I think also for governments to be on board, because, for example, Mass Design Group has been working for more than 10 years in this sort of framework, and they have government support. It has to work across the board where, educational institutions are involved, international research institutions, research and working with communities, and also like putting up sort of, if for example, you tell the government we're going to have a hospital and do this we're presenting a hospital, then it becomes easier for government and policymakers to also see it as something that's beneficial, because for them at the end of the day, it's still a capitalism sort of centered kind of thing. But yeah, these are some of the examples. So Mass Design Group, Fire Adeyemi, and ADC, African Design Center. Sorry, Rad, do I cut you off?
Not at all. No, I was just going to say that this crossed our mind when we were first starting. In the beginning, our main concept was to work on development projects and community projects, and that was our very focus. And we always have to collaborate with NGOs and local initiatives to make this real impact. And then when we decided, or when we started to think, if we want to create a bigger impact and we want to influence not just the development sector, but the construction sector as a whole, then we probably have to start targeting also the developers and the commercial side. And that's when we started the conversation with individual developers and real estate developers. And we were always aware that having on our side sort of accreditation or building codes that supports our work is a crucial part. And luckily last year we just had, like, the Egyptian government, they issued a code for the compressed earth blocks, so that paved the road for us and for the projects that we're currently discussing, is that they can become more official. We can get an actual sort of accreditation from consultants. So I think, yes, it needs some policies and regulations, and it needs also to address decision makers and to address entities. Also, for example, when we started working with the Ministry of Environmental Affairs, being a local and being an official governmental body in the country, that also paved the road for other connections, because it's a credible entity, it's a credible body. So that also paved the road for other decision makers and other sectors to start adopting these kind of techniques. So I think yes, it comes from awareness, it comes from regulations, it comes from tackling decision makers in different sectors and not just one sector.
And this was good news.
The same point for Mr. Gustav. You ask about the method or the proper or from our experience. For me, what I have to say, you have to design and build a good example of a traditional architecture with a beauty value. Nobody can say this is ugly or this is not correct, even for the thermal insulation or for the sustainability. After you finish this good example, people, they can see the samples or the project and have a look, not for the rendering or for the drawings on the computer or digital animation or whatever. They can touch the walls, they can feel the atmosphere, and you can convince them. This is the way to solve this issue from my point of view.
Thanks for sharing. And I would like to, I would love to invite Professor Neil, as he had a reflection, and I'm so excited for that reflection.
Yes, Neil. Let's hear it.
Ahmed, well, first of all, can I just say this was terrific. I mean, I thought the presentations were all really fascinating. And even though I think we had a version from we had a range from the high tech to the low tech, I think what they all had in common was a kind of a sense of it inscribing the techniques and technology within a kind of social, political, and economic context, which I think has always was always the message of the Bauhaus itself. You don't just fetishize technology; you see it within its context, and I think that's really very, very special. And somehow, just because Neddy was presenting today, I mean, I was there at the beginning of what was happening in Dessau next to the Bauhaus. It was what 17 years ago now, when Alfred Jacobi set things up, and we all talk about the Bauhaus. We all talk about the Bauhaus, and of course it had a huge impact. But it was going on for about 8 years, I think, in Dessau, and there are about, I don't know, 24 students or something. And via this organization that was set up by Alfred Jacobi in 2002 or something, it's had 200 students going on for almost 20 years. The actual impact is absolutely huge. And we know that there was an enormous number of Egyptian students and all over the world. They all came to Dessau. And it's to my mind, it's kind of interesting to kind of reflect on some of those kind of moves. When we started off, I mean, we had 10 students literally in the design studio. And I think the starting point actually was this very inspired move by the German government to decide to actually teach in English in order to democratize education, to find a universal language. And that was a very noble gesture. I can't imagine the British government or the American government deciding to teach in German. Anyway, that unleashed something and set something up, which had this profound effect, which I think is really rippling out throughout the whole of the world right now, which I'm really amazed by. And I always like to think about what we're doing in Digital Futures in the context of that, because Dessau was essentially free, and it was all about kind of bringing the world together in many ways. And so I kind of think I'm just wondering whether, in 17 years' time, I'll look back on what we were doing in Digital Futures and thinking about the seed that we planted and what it's grown into. But it's an astonishing thing. And just to think right now that because we're actually combining today low tech with high tech. I mean, we're seeing, I was just fascinated to be able to parachute into Egypt and see this kind of rammed earth technique using Zoom technology to find out about local traditions. And I think this is an amazing thing that is happening, really astonishing thing that's happening. And I go back to the kind of the actually, maybe you don't know this, but the original term DIA, it was actually coined by a guy called Gunnar Hartmann, who was teaching with me, and it was about dialogue. DIA was about dialogue. And I think what we've established is the possibility of a kind of global dialogue. The language is English, the communication is Zoom, the numbers we use are Arabic, right? But it's happening in some way. And I'm just very excited by the possibility of what this is opening up in terms of finding out what's going on and sharing ideas across the world. And I would just say that we've got a few more planned like this. we are going to parachute into the Amazon in December. We're planning to do something in Bangladesh, and I had some students in Dessau that came from Bangladesh. We'll be having a session on that. And I think hopefully we'll be able to open this up as alongside our other kind of agendas, to be able to sort of see precisely what's going on in your communities and to really understand. And I think that idea of kind of bringing people together in a world where there's too much division right now, especially in the United States, is a wonderful thing. So I just wanted to thank everyone, all the presenters, because they were really fabulous. And thank Ahmed for setting this up. Let's hope that this is going to be something that more we can continue this dialogue into the future. But thank you. I love this. It was great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to say that a few months ago when Neil presented Digital Futures, I didn't, I seemed to be lost a little bit in academia. But what I started to realize is that we're all united as one people. If we believe that education should be free, and if living in a good home is a human right, then architects should unite together as one. And I don't know how that's possible, but at least Neil gave a little hope. And I think we're all a part of this tapestry, and hopefully we can make a difference. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. This evening.
Yes, this evening for us. Thanks, Gustavo, for your reflection. And thanks, Professor Neil, for your inspiration. I used to be inspired by your words.
I'm inspired by your words, okay?
This week, I would like to, I would like to discuss for more hours and days. But thanks for the presenters. I used to say that statement after each presentation, that everyone had to believe that he can change the world for a better place. So please, for our audience, believe in yourself. And on behalf of Digital Futures, we are waiting for your contributions and submissions in our next calls. And the discussion is not just finished, it is just started. And I would like to share more news from the past week. We had more interesting news. Like, it is not, I'm sharing my screen now with the whole world. It is not just the Acadia prize Digital Futures have, and we all just shared on our profiles, but as well, we had two from our teams just joined Acadia, Matthias Del Campo and Piana, and as well, Piana joined CAD Futures 2021. And I'm looking forward for the future of these two organizations. They are one of our team. And thanks for everyone for your time. We run out of time, and we'll be waiting for your discussions on Discord and YouTube as well. Thanks for everyone. See you next time.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you for the opportunity.